The driver shouted, "Don't open the window, the lion is coming." But it was too late. Jenna Clark had always felt an unbreakable bond with the natural world. From a young age, growing up in the bustling city of London, she found her escape in books and documentaries about distant wild places, vast savannas, towering forests, and the animals that roamed them freely. That fascination became a calling, a driving force that led her to study wildlife biology and later to hone her skills as a photographer. For Jenna, capturing a perfect image was never just about aesthetics. It was about telling stories that could inspire change, shed light on endangered species, and bridge the widening gap between humans and the wild world. By the time she reached 29, Jenna was already recognized as a rising star in the field of wildlife photography. Her work had graced the pages of conservation magazines, exhibited in galleries, and featured in acclaimed documentaries. But Jenna's approach was different from most. She didn't seek mere pictures. She sought moments, raw, vulnerable, and unfiltered. She understood that behind every frame was a living creature with a story, a struggle, a place in the delicate web of life. In early May 2015, Jenna announced on her social media channels that she would be embarking on a solo assignment in South Africa. Her goal was to document the behaviors of African big cats, lions, cheetahs, and leopards for a new conservation campaign. Her followers eagerly awaited updates, knowing that Jenna's passion and skill would bring them closer to creatures few ever got to see in the wild. She posted snapshots of her camera gear, meticulously prepared, maps dotted with notes, and her flight itinerary from Heathrow to OR Tambo International Airport. Arriving in Johannesburg, Jenna was struck by the contrast between the sprawling metropolis and the wild lands just beyond its reach. The Lion Park, located roughly 30 kilometers outside the city, was her first destination. Unlike the expansive national parks with strict regulations, Lion Park offered visitors the chance to drive through enclosures where lions and other predators roamed freely. It was a place where the wild and human worlds met, sometimes uneasily. Jenna had researched thoroughly and knew the risks involved. She also knew that such a controlled environment offered a rare chance to observe these magnificent animals at close range, in a setting that could still allow for remarkable photographic opportunities. From the moment she entered the park, Jenna's senses sharpened. The dirt road ahead stretched under a bright African sky, lined by tall grasses that swayed gently in the breeze. The air was thick with the scents of earth and wild vegetation. The distant roar of lions echoed faintly, a reminder that she was not in a zoo, but in the presence of apex predators. Her jeep moved slowly, the engine's hum a low backdrop to the natural sounds around her: bird calls, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional grunt from nearby animals. Jenna was equipped with an array of cameras and lenses: high-end DSLRs, long telephoto lenses for capturing distant subjects, and a compact mirrorless camera for quick shots. Every piece of equipment was carefully chosen for precision and durability. She set her gear by the passenger seat, ready to seize the moment whenever it presented itself. The plan was simple but ambitious. Spend several days within Lion Park to gather enough footage and photographs to illustrate the complex lives of these predators, their interactions, and the challenges they faced. As she drove deeper into the park, Jenna's eyes caught sight of several lions resting in the tall grass. Their tawny coats blended perfectly with the earth, making them almost invisible at first glance. She stopped the jeep quietly, switched to her telephoto lens, and began shooting. The lions appeared calm, regal, and utterly indifferent to the presence of the vehicle. They had grown accustomed to the constant flow of visitors, a fact that both fascinated and concerned Jenna. She thought back to her years of experience in more remote and wild environments where lions maintained a cautious distance from humans. Here, habituation had clearly altered their behavior. While it might seem to offer a safer experience for tourists, Jenna understood the deeper dangers lurking beneath this calm facade. The lions were wild animals, predators with instincts that no amount of human proximity could fully tame. Her attention soon focused on a particular male lion. He was a striking specimen, his mane thick, dark, and wild, framing a face marked by scars and wisdom beyond his years. His eyes were sharp and alert, scanning the horizon with an intensity that captured Jenna's imagination. This lion was the embodiment of the power and majesty that had drawn her to Africa in the first place. Feeling a surge of excitement, Jenna decided to get closer. She lowered the Jeep's window slightly, just enough to steady her camera and frame the perfect shot. Her fingers worked swiftly, adjusting settings, her breath steady as she composed the image. The lion seemed indifferent to the vehicle, lying just a few feet away, its muscles relaxed. In Jenna's mind, this was the moment she had been preparing for, a close-up shot that would tell a story of strength, vulnerability, and the raw beauty of the wild. But as she concentrated on her subject, Jenna missed the subtle signs around her. Nearby, another guide's vehicle had stopped, and the driver waved frantically, trying to catch her attention. The warning was clear. Rules were being broken. Visitors were instructed to keep windows fully closed, a rule designed to keep both humans and animals safe. Yet Jenna's focus was singular, her passion blinding her to the danger. The lion's gaze shifted suddenly, locking onto Jenna's face with a predator's intensity. The atmosphere changed, the light breeze stilled, the sounds of the park faded, and a tense silence fell over the scene. In that instant, the lion's playful familiarity with vehicles transformed into something more primal, an assertion of dominance, a test of boundaries. Before Jenna could react, the lion lunged. The speed and power of the attack were terrifying. Its massive head thrust through the open window, jaws clamping down on Jenna's arm with crushing force. The camera slipped from her grasp, clattering against the Jeep's side as her world erupted into chaos. The driver's panicked attempts to accelerate were futile against the lion's grip, its claws raking the vehicle's side as it pulled Jenna closer. Her screams echoed, raw and desperate, piercing the once peaceful air. Nearby tourists and park rangers rushed toward the commotion, but the nightmare unfolded with a brutal swiftness that left little time for intervention. The scene that followed was heartbreaking. Despite the ranger's efforts and the driver's brave struggle, Jenna's injuries proved fatal. The lion, driven by instincts honed over millennia, had reminded everyone that the wild is never fully tamed. The sun hung low in the African sky as Jenna Clark's Jeep crept further into the Lion Park, the dusty dirt road winding through vast open spaces dotted with golden grass and acacia trees, a landscape that seemed frozen in time but teeming with life just beneath the surface. Jenna's heart beat with a mixture of exhilaration and focused determination. She was not just a visitor here, but a professional, a storyteller, armed with her high-end DSLR and telephoto lenses, ready to capture the raw majesty of Africa's apex predator, the lion. The air was thick with the scents of earth, wild grass, and the faint musk of the great cats nearby. And though the park was promoted as a safe, controlled environment where lions roamed free but posed no immediate threat due to their habituation to human presence, Jenna knew better. Habituation, she understood from her years of experience, was a double-edged sword. It dulled the lions' natural wariness, making them more unpredictable, more dangerous. As she spotted a large male lion resting in the sun, his thick mane framing a regal face marked with scars from battles past, Jenna's instincts surged. This was the shot she had come for, a chance to immortalize the king of beasts in all his power and grace, to capture not just his image, but his spirit. Her Jeep rolled slowly to a stop just meters from the lion. the engine's hum fading into silence as she prepared her camera, heart steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The lion's amber eyes locked onto her lens, curious but calm, muscles rippling under his tawny fur as he shifted slightly, settling into the tall grass. Confident, Jenna lowered the window just enough to steady her camera, to frame the shot perfectly, ignoring the small voice in her mind whispering caution, convinced that her years of experience and respect for animals would keep her safe. What Jenna didn't see was the subtle change in the lion's demeanor, his gaze sharpening, his body tensing ever so slightly, as if he sensed something unfamiliar, a breach in the invisible boundary between him and the vehicle, a door opening where there should have been a solid wall. Meanwhile, a few cars away, a park guide noticed the open window and began waving frantically, shouting warnings she could no longer hear over the clicking shutter of Jenna's camera, desperate to stop her before it was too late. The park's rules, clearly stated and designed to protect both visitors and animals, were being broken, and the consequences would be swift. In a blink, the lion's playfulness and habituation gave way to primal instinct, the predator within roaring to life as he lunged forward with astonishing speed and power, thrusting his massive head through the open window and locking his jaws onto Jenna's arm with terrifying precision. The camera slipped from her hands, crashing against the side of the Jeep as she screamed in shock and pain, the sound raw and desperate, echoing through the silent park. The driver, shocked and horrified, slammed his foot on the accelerator, trying to pull away, but the lion's grip was relentless, claws digging into the vehicle's side as it yanked Jenna closer, the fight between man and beast erupting in a terrifying instant. Time seemed to slow even as chaos unfolded, the rustling grass, distant bird calls, and the usual sounds of the park vanished into a haunting silence, filled only by the lion's low growl and Jenna's fading cries. Nearby tourists stopped their cars, some frozen in disbelief, others screaming for help, while park rangers raced toward the scene, engines roaring and tires kicking up dust, their faces grim as they prepared to intervene. One ranger fired a warning shot into the air, hoping to startle the lion and force it to release its grip. But the animal, caught in the throes of its instinct, barely flinched, its focus solely on its prey. Jenna's arm was badly injured, the powerful jaws crushing bone and tearing muscle as she struggled to pull free. But the lion's hold was too strong, the danger too real. The driver's efforts to pry the animal away were frantic and desperate, but the lion's strength and determination were overwhelming. The minutes that followed were a blur of sirens, shouted commands, and the arrival of emergency medical personnel. But the damage was done. Jenna's injuries were severe, her life hanging in the balance. The driver, though shaken and bruised, survived with minor injuries, but for Jenna, the dream of capturing the wild's beauty had come to a tragic and sudden end. As paramedics worked desperately to stabilize her, the park's peaceful facade shattered, replaced by a grim reality. Wildlife is unpredictable, no matter how familiar it seems. The news of the attack spread quickly, igniting shock and grief across social media and news outlets worldwide, sparking urgent debates about the ethics and safety of safari parks that allowed such close interaction between humans and powerful predators. Questions poured in from all directions. Why was the window open? Was the driver at fault? Could the park have done more to prevent this tragedy? Experts weighed in, warning that habituated lions lose their natural fear of humans, making them more dangerous, and emphasizing that safety rules exist for a reason, not as suggestions, but as lifelines. Jenna's death was not just a personal tragedy. It was a wake-up call to the world that, no matter how experienced or passionate one is, nature remains wild, powerful, and often unpredictable. As the sun set behind the distant hills, casting long shadows over the park, Jenna's jeep sat still, a silent witness to the devastating consequences of one moment's decision, a moment where passion crossed the line and the wild reminded humanity of its place in the natural order. The incident would lead to investigations, safety reviews, and painful reflection. But for Jenna Clark, it was too late. Her story became a somber lesson etched into the hearts of those who loved wildlife. A reminder that respect for the rules, for the creatures we seek to understand and protect, is not optional but essential. For the wild will always retain its power to surprise, and sometimes to take away everything in the blink of an eye. In the hours and days following the tragic attack on Jenna Clark, the world seemed to hold its breath, struggling to comprehend how such a devastating event could unfold in what was supposed to be a controlled environment designed to protect both humans and wildlife. The news spread rapidly across local and international media. Headlines splashed across screens, declaring the death of the award-winning wildlife photographer at South Africa's Lion Park, a place many considered safe and a bridge between the wild and the visitor, yet now forever marked by tragedy. Authorities arrived swiftly at the scene, conducting thorough investigations into the park's safety protocols and the circumstances that led to the incident, while park officials faced intense scrutiny as questions mounted about their responsibility and whether their safety measures were adequate, properly enforced, or simply ignored by those who should have known better. Social media exploded with reactions from people worldwide. Shock, grief, anger, and disbelief poured in as friends, fellow photographers, conservationists, and everyday nature lovers grappled with the sudden loss of someone so passionate and respected, whose life was dedicated to showcasing the beauty and fragility of the natural world. Tributes flooded in, celebrating Jenna's courage, talent, and unwavering dedication, while simultaneously mourning the cruel irony that her passion had ultimately cost her everything. Experts and wildlife professionals weighed in on the complexity of human-wildlife interaction in such settings, emphasizing that habituation, while it might give tourists a false sense of security, renders animals more unpredictable and dangerous as their natural fear of humans fades, replaced by a confusing blend of curiosity and territorial behavior that can escalate without warning. This loss ignited fierce debates in conservation and tourism circles, challenging the ethics of controlled wildlife experiences where the lines between safety and risk are often blurred, and where the thirst for close-up photos can overshadow respect for wild animals' instincts and boundaries. The incident also exposed the fragile tension between tourism revenue and conservation priorities, raising difficult questions about how parks balance visitor access with animal welfare and safety, and whether existing rules, often clearly stated, are enough when human temptation and ambition lead to dangerous decisions. Investigators scrutinized every detail: the park's signage, the adequacy of visitor briefings, the vigilance of guides and drivers, and the training provided to staff tasked with protecting both guests and animals, searching for gaps or failures that might have prevented the fatal attack. Meanwhile, Jenna's family and friends wrestled with grief that felt both raw and surreal. How could someone so careful, so respectful of wildlife, fall victim to the unpredictability of nature? At her memorial in London, tearful eulogies recounted her fearless spirit and unyielding commitment to conservation, underscoring that she had never taken her passion lightly, but had simply been caught in a moment where the wild's ancient power overwhelmed even the most experienced human. The tragedy sparked broader conversations about the risks inherent in wildlife photography and safari tourism, with many urging stricter enforcement of safety rules, better visitor education, and more cautious approaches that prioritize respect over spectacle. It was a sobering reminder that no matter how well trained or knowledgeable, humans remain vulnerable in the face of nature's raw force, and that one misstep, One open window, one ignored warning, can have fatal consequences. As the investigation continued, Lion Park faced intense public pressure to revise its protocols and improve safety, with some calling for stricter limits on visitor access or even reconsideration of such drive-through enclosures altogether. Yet, amid the anger and sorrow, Jenna's story also inspired renewed dedication to wildlife protection, fueling campaigns and fundraising efforts in her name aimed at preserving the habitats and species she had devoted her life to documenting. Her final images, captured in those fleeting moments before tragedy struck, became symbols of both the beauty and danger inherent in the wild, stirring powerful emotions and a collective reckoning with humanity's relationship to nature. The world mourned a photographer whose lens had brought distant creatures closer to millions, but whose life was abruptly stolen by the very subjects she sought to honor. Jenna's death served as a stark warning and a call for humility, reminding all who venture into the wild that respect for the rules is not just protocol, but a necessity for survival, and that in the unpredictable realm of wildlife, passion must always be tempered with caution. Through tearful reflections and urgent debates, her legacy became a beacon, a powerful narrative of loss that also carried hope, pushing for safer, more ethical interactions with the natural world and a deeper understanding that the wild cannot be fully controlled or tamed. As the days turned into weeks, the world's gaze returned to the fragile balance between humans and predators. The haunting echoes of Jenna's story underscoring the fragile boundary that separates wonder from tragedy and urging all who love the wild to tread carefully. For the wilderness will always hold the power to surprise, and sometimes to take away everything in a heartbeat. In the weeks and months following the tragic death of Jenna Clark, her story transformed from a shocking headline into a powerful and lasting legacy, resonating deeply within the worlds of wildlife photography, conservation, and beyond. Her family, friends, and colleagues gathered in London for a memorial service that was as much a celebration of her life and passion as it was a somber reckoning with the fragility of human existence in the face of nature's untamed force, with tearful eulogies highlighting Jenna's fearless dedication, her reverence for the wild, and her relentless drive to tell stories that might save endangered species from oblivion. Her mother's heartfelt words, spoken through trembling tears, encapsulated the paradox of Jenna's fate. She was neither reckless nor careless, but a passionate woman whose single decision in Lion Park had altered everything, leaving behind a void felt by all who knew her and many who only knew her through her breathtaking images. Jenna's photographs, now even more poignant, became symbols of both beauty and tragedy, depicting the majestic lions, elephants, and landscapes she had worked tirelessly to protect, and reminding the world of the thin line separating admiration from respect and respect from caution. The conservation community rallied around her memory, launching campaigns and educational programs that emphasized not only the importance of protecting wildlife, but also the critical need to understand and respect their boundaries, teaching that the wilderness is not a backdrop for human ambition, but a realm of unpredictable life with its own rules and rhythms. Her story sparked widespread reflection on the ethics of wildlife tourism, particularly in environments where animals are habituated to human presence, prompting many parks and organizations to re-evaluate their safety protocols, visitor guidelines, and educational outreach to prevent future tragedies and promote coexistence rather than exploitation. The incident at Lion Park ignited debates about the commercialization of wildlife experiences and the sometimes blurred line between conservation and entertainment, with voices calling for more stringent regulations, increased accountability, and a recommitment to preserving the wild on its own terms, rather than as a commodity for photographs and fleeting thrills. Jenna's life and death underscored the profound responsibility borne by those who enter the wild. not just as observers, but as advocates and protectors, and reminded photographers everywhere that the pursuit of a perfect shot must never come at the cost of safety, respect, or humility. Through documentaries, exhibitions, and written tributes, her work continued to inspire a new generation of conservationists and artists who carried forward her message with renewed urgency and awareness, honoring her legacy by striving to balance passion with prudence. Jenna's tragic end also humanized the risks faced daily by wildlife professionals, illuminating the thin line they walk between capturing nature's beauty and confronting its dangers and fostering greater appreciation for their courage and dedication. Her story was woven into the broader narrative of human interaction with the natural world, a cautionary tale reminding all who venture into wild spaces that nature is neither tame nor forgiving, and that respect for its rules is essential not only for survival, but for the enduring preservation of the very creatures we seek to protect. As the years passed, the impact of Jenna's life and death rippled through the conservation community, influencing policies, shaping visitor education, and strengthening efforts to foster safer, more ethical relationships between humans and wildlife. Her memory became a beacon, illuminating the complexities of coexistence and the sacrifices often hidden behind stunning photographs and compelling documentaries. Above all, Jenna Clark's story is a testament to the enduring power of passion tempered with respect. A reminder that, in the wild, every moment is precious and every decision matters, and that honoring the untamed spirit of nature demands courage, care, and the wisdom to know when to step back. Her legacy, carved in images and hearts alike, continues to inspire and caution, urging all who love the wild to remember that no photograph, no story is worth the ultimate price. For in respecting the wilderness, we honor life itself, and in doing so, keep its wild heart beating for generations to come.